Next four picks, Dallas took CeeDee Lamb in a shocker that he fell to them. 18, Miami, they drafted Austin Jackson. And then we touched on these last two picks, the Raiders taking Damon Arnette and the Jaguars picking Calebon Chaisson. So Jacob and Charlie, what are your thoughts on these four teams? Actually, mostly Dallas and then Miami, the final two picks for Miami.
Yeah, I think that Dallas grabbing Lamb was a no-brainer at that point. I know he didn't fill the biggest need, but just the fact that they now have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup on offense for Dak Prescott to target is huge. And I know their defense isn't as good because they've lost a lot of talent. But I thought they did a good job during the draft of adding some guys. I know they got Bradley and Nye really late, and I'm a big Trayvon Diggs fan. They managed to get him at 51. Neville Gallimore was another guy they got who I liked. So I think he did a good job of filling defensive needs while still grabbing a first-round prospect that they didn't expect to be there. We'll see if Lamb can live up to that potential. I know he wants to wear number 10 at the next level, and Jerry Jones wants him to wear 88. I saw that today on Twitter. I don't know how accurate that is because I fell asleep right after, but I don't know if that's going to be a thing where he wants to wear a number and Jones wants to wear another. That'll be hilarious. But yeah, anyway, Cowboys, really solid draft, even if their first round pick didn't fill the biggest need. Jackson, I mocked to the Dolphins at 26. I had him at 18 on several occasions, but I actually switched up who they were getting in my mock because I had them trading up to 13. Should have stuck with what I had before. Jackson's a really great athlete. He's going to need some time to develop, but I think he can be a good left tackle at the next level. So I thought they did a good job of getting not one of the top four guys, but who I had as the next best guy. They did some other stuff that was a little bit surprising. At 30, going with Noah Igbonagian was a little bit of a I didn't see that coming. I didn't think he'd actually go in the first round. He's really raw. I didn't think the team needed a third cornerback, but who knows? Brian Flores must have some way he's planning on using him. It'll be interesting to see if Xavier Howard and Igbonagian and Byron Jones can all coexist in that secondary, though. I wasn't wild about that. I also wasn't wild about them waiting on a running back for most of the draft. They got Matt Breida, whose name I can never say. I always want to call him Breida. But pairing him with Jordan Howard should be okay, but I don't know if either is like a top-tier option. So Dolphins had a lot of picks, though, and they did a lot of good, and obviously they're more talented than they were last year. But I think they still have some holes to fill. I won't waste too much time on the Raiders and Jaguars picks because we already had them, but Arnette was probably the biggest reach of the first round, in my opinion. So I'll just leave it at that. Chaisson, really good pick for the Jaguars.
Yeah, Charlie, what are your thoughts on 17, 18, and I guess 26 too?
Yeah, I thought that the Lamb was the steal of the first round for the Cowboys at 16. I think that's just an amazing pick for Dallas. Getting him there, he easily could have gone in the top 12, and no one would have batted an eye at it. Even inside the top 10, same thing. So I think that's a great pick. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he ends up becoming their number one and Amari Cooper's more of the number two there, just because Amari Cooper's kind of been a roller coaster player from week to week in his career where, he might go for 200 yards one game and then he has 40 and 50 for the next 2 or 3 games and then he explodes again. And I think Lamb might be that guy that's a bit more steady and consistent from week to week because he's bigger. He does so well with Yak, was amazing with the ball in his hands. So I think he could be kind of a higher volume, steadier receiver for Dallas. I thought the Cowboys absolutely were superb on the next 3 rounds. Trayvon Diggs in the second round is a steal. He has the skill set of a number one corner. I think Neville Gallimore is a superb third round pick. Give them an interior pass rusher. He can learn from Gerald McCoy, fellow Oklahoma Sooner. And I think that's really an excellent fit for him where he landed. And then I think Reggie Robinson, their 4th round pick, is a really good sleeper. He's big. He's fast. He showed really good cover skills at Tulsa. And I spoke with an area scout about why is this guy a 4th rounder? And he said just because he played at Tulsa. That's the only. If he played at Alabama or LSU, he'd be a first or second round pick. But because he played at Tulsa, he went under the radar. So I think that could be a steal for them. So I think the Cowboys really had an amazing draft. Austin Jackson, I think, was a fine second pick for Miami. They had to get a left tackle. He has that ability. Might not be ready to go at it all 3 downs right away, but I think, in a year or two, he's going to be a good left tackle for them. I agree with Jacob on the running back situation. I think passing on the running backs at pick 30, I really don't understand that. When you had all of them there, you could have had your choice, the best running back in the draft, in your opinion, whether it's Swift or Edwards-Helaire, Dobbins, Akers, who Jonathan Taylor, whoever you felt. I mean, they were all there, and running backs have a big impact on wins and losses. They already have a ton of money invested in the cornerback position with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So adding another first-round pick there, I just feel is not a good distribution of resources when you really had just awful challenges running the ball last year. I think a running back there would have made a lot more sense. And as we hit on, Arnette reach for the Raiders at 19. Chaisson, definitely good value for the Jags at 20, but it does kind of set themselves in more of a hole with Yannick Ngakwe's situation as well. But overall, I think these 4 players are all talented, and none of these guys is going to be like a bust in the NFL.
Yeah, leave it to the Dolphins to really strengthen their cornerbacks when Tom Brady leaves the division. It's kind of like bad timing. I don't really understand the Igbonagian pick. At least they traded down. I'll give them that. I didn't think they needed a third corner, especially in a division where you have Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Tua. It was obviously Tua's in their team, and then we don't know who's going to play for the Patriots. Probably Stidham. So I don't really understand the pick. I agree that running back would have been better. They did get Matt Breida. I like Breida if he stays healthy. The problem is that he can't stay healthy. He's always injured. But maybe he turns his career around. Like Fred Taylor, for years he was known as Fragile Fred. He'd get injured every year, and then later in his career he didn't get injured for like 3 or 4 years in a row. So hopefully that goes well for Breida. I'd like to see him succeed. For the Cowboys, I mean, that's definitely a steal. They had a great draft overall, starting with Lamb. They had Lamb as their number 1 receiver. They thought that they're going to take Kayvon Chaisson, but when they saw Lamb available, they just couldn't pass on him, and they were right to do that. In the second round, it was remarkable that Trayvon Diggs fell to them, because Trayvon Diggs was one of their backup plans if Chaisson wasn't available, and they were going to take Diggs at 17, no problem. And the fact that he fell to them in the second round was great. They in the third round, they wanted Logan Wilson. He was not available, the linebacker from Wyoming, so they went with Gallimore, and I thought that was a good pick. I agree with Charlie. And then and Reggie Robinson I liked as well. And then in an odd series of events, they traded into the Eagles pick, and they got Tyler Biadasz to be their new center. And I don't understand how the Eagles just gave Dallas their new center. I don't know. I mean, maybe they didn't think highly of Biadasz, and the Eagles did need an interior lineman. But if he turns out to be a good player, it's going to be a pretty bad look for the Eagles. And speaking of the Eagles, so 21, they take Jalen Reagor, and we also have to discuss the second round pick of Jalen Hurts. The Vikings picked Justin Jefferson. The Chargers took Kenneth Murray after a trade. We already discussed that, so we'll pass that one. And then the Saints, they drafted Cesar Ruiz, which I think surprised some people. So with the Eagles, we have to mention Reagor and Hurts, as I said. And also I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Adam Schefter, he reported, or at least maybe speculated, I'm not sure which one it was, but he said that the Eagles may have drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round because they were afraid that Carson Wentz was going to get the coronavirus. It's something that he actually said. So I don't know what you guys think of that, and also these 4 picks. So Jacob and Charlie.
Well, let's start with that Eagles second round pick, because what the hell were they doing in this draft? Look, I think I'm a bigger fan of Jalen Hurts than you guys, but I think he needs a lot of work at the next level. And his upside right now is as a Taysom Hill style gadget player where he can come in, play some running back, cat QB, throw him in at tight end for a snap and just make the defense do some guesswork and stuff. I don't like the idea of having him in Philly where he's, he's learning under Carson Wentz, which is fine, but Carson Wentz is in the prime of his career. I know he's dealt with injury issues and you want a good backup, but the issue that we're dealing with here is Hurts, if he had to start for Wentz this year, I think wouldn't be ready to do it because his offense at Oklahoma was very much tailored to his abilities, and he's more of a one-read quarterback, and then he looks to scramble, and he's great at scrambling, and he was great in college, and he won a lot in college, but I just don't know if he's ready yet. Like Taysom Hill, we've seen develop on the sideline for 2 or 3 seasons. I can't really remember how many. And, now he's starting to look like he can be the successor to Drew Brees. I think Hurts needs that same kind of treatment, develop him as a passer. And if he can develop, then great. He could be a quarterback at the NFL level, possibly. But if he can't, then it's like, all right, you're going to be a gadget player for us. And drafting a guy like that in the second round when you don't have a need at quarterback doesn't make any sense. And it compounded their decision already to pass on Justin Jefferson to take Jalen Reagor, who, could pan out. He's a good speed guy. He's probably faster than he showed at the combine. I think he tried to bulk up a little bit and he didn't retain his speed as a result. But he's more of a one-dimensional threat than I think Jefferson, who could have been inside, outside, has a great athletic ability, was super productive. And I thought Reagor could turn into like a good value pick on day 2, but taking him at 21 without trading down or without sacrificing their second-round pick to trade up with Atlanta, and that second-round pick ending up being Jalen Hurts to get CeeDee Lamb is ridiculous, and then you see him land with the divisional rival. So I hate what the Eagles did the first 2 days of the draft. They redeemed themselves a little bit with some solid pickups on day 3. I think they were the ones who ended up with Prince Tega Wanogo. I think he went in the 6th round, and I had a pretty high grade on him. I thought he was going to go on day 2, but injury issues dropped him. So they did some nice things, but overall, this draft has to be viewed as a failure because their inability to get really quality guys who can turn them into a winner now around Carson Wentz in the first couple of rounds. I just think they missed there. And conversely, the Vikings did a fantastic job of adding both quality players and quantity players. They had 15 picks, and I have a problem with almost 0 of them. I think they did such a good job. If you look at what they did, they had Justin Jefferson, they have Jeff Gladney, Ezra Cleveland, Cameron Dantzler. Those are their first 4 picks, all could be starters. And then you look further down, it's like they get James Lynch, Troy Dye, Kenny Willekes. Those guys could be quality rotational players. You get Nate Stanley to be a good developmental backup in the 7th round. And so just the juxtaposition of the Eagles drafting at 21 and not really doing a good job of getting value for their guys, and the Vikings getting excellent value at every one of their picks, I think just speaks to how this draft went for the Eagles and showcases that, their time as like a playoff team in the NFC is in jeopardy if they don't figure things out soon.
I mean, I agree with Jacob on a lot of what he was saying there. Just first of all, hitting on Minnesota, I thought the values they got on day 2 and day 3 were excellent. I think round 1, Jefferson step right in across from Thielen and give them a potent number 2 right away. I think Gladney, I like as a player. I do think he has some limitations in size, so I think just putting him in the right matchup is going to be important for him, especially as he gets going in his career. But really, throughout his career, you're just going to want to not put him up against the big receivers. I completely agree on the Eagles as well, as far as the Jalen Hurts pick was just terrible. I mean, to me, if you need a backup quarterback, there's always backup quarterbacks available in free agency. They could have signed Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal, whether it's getting Andy Dalton or, there's always veterans out there, solid veterans that can come in and be a number 2 for you. So that pick was terrible when you compound it that you used it on that when you could have used it to go up and get CeeDee Lamb is just unforgivable, in my opinion. I thought The draft for them was just criminal outside of day 3. I agree with Jacob there. They had some solid picks there on day 3. Hightower and Quez Watkins, I think, could be nice values for them. Prince Tega Wanogo has a great skill set. And the funny thing is, we had comped him to Jason Peters in our scouting report before the draft. There's a lot of similarities between those two guys in terms of how they came into the NFL with some character and off the field, but also great skill sets. So I think that could end up being a steal if they can get him focused on football, and maybe sliding to the 6th round will do that in terms of sending a message to him, because obviously he has a first-round skill set. He just lost out on a huge amount of money that he's going to need to play well in order to get back. And then as far as Ruiz with the Saints, I don't love that pick because it feels like they drafted 2 of the same guys in back-to-back years with him and Eric McCoy. And I don't really like that matchup of those 2 guys going against Derek Brown and Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. And in those divisional games, I reached out to sources at Carolina and Tampa and asked them, how do you, am I missing something here? Because to me, that looks like a matchup that really favors you guys. And they both said, no, I'm happy about that one. I like how the size of our guy goes up against those 2 who are both, smaller for interior D linemen, good athletes, but they're both kind of centers and someone's going to be playing guard. So that was a bit of a head scratcher to me for the Saints, especially when they still had issues at corner. You had good corners available. You could have gone with another receiver to go with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, have a 3rd one in depth there as well, I think would have been smart. So I'm not in love with the Saints pick of Ruiz. So that one to me was a bit of a head scratcher after taking McCoy last year. But I definitely think the Saints are in win now mode. So at least I applaud them with the Zach Bond pick in the 3rd round and not taking a quarterback, with one of those first 2 picks, avoiding the Philadelphia and Green Bay mistakes.
It's never a good thing when your divisional rivals are happy about your first-round picks. So I imagine that, the Redskins, Giants, and Cowboys were thrilled that the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts. In fact, right after the second day of the draft, I appeared on a short video with Kenny, and we were talking about how bad the Hurts pick was. And I said that I've been covering the NFL draft for WalterFootball.com for 20 years. And this is the worst pick I've ever seen. Obviously you could say, oh, what about Jamarcus Russell and all the other busts that we had? But at the time they made sense. Like the Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell because of his upside. And you could say that about any player who failed. But with Jalen Hurts, there's no logic there. Carson Wentz is 27, not 37. If you're 37, I'd be all for the pick, but they just gave him $100 million. He's entering the prime of his career. Yeah, he's had some injury issues, but like Charlie said, why not sign Jameis Winston? Why not get Andy Dalton once he's cut by the Bengals? Like there are so many options out there for backup quarterbacks. And usually in the draft, you take your backup quarterback in the 4th round. In fact, back in 2012, when the Redskins drafted Robert Griffin 2nd overall, they drafted Kirk Cousins in the 4th round, which I thought was a fine pick, but even that was criticized. I remember Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser on PTI, just slamming the Redskins for that pick. And I thought that, it's the 4th round. Like that's when you take your backup quarterback. Not in the 2nd round though. You take your 2nd round pick, like the Patriots drafted Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2nd because they thought he would start for them soon. Same thing with the Eagles and Kevin Cobb. They thought he would start over McNabb in a couple of years. But with Hurts, I mean, the ideal situation is that Hurts won't play at all. Because that means Carson Wentz won't get hurt. And this is this is my argument with punters. And I think I talked to you about this, Charlie. Usually you don't want your punter on the field. That means your offense fails.
Right.
So it's like, instead of drafting a punter, why don't you draft a player who prevents your punter from being on the field? Like that's always been my thought process with punters. It's kind of like the same thing here with Jalen Hurts. And, throw in the fact that the Eagles could have given up this pick to get CeeDee Lamb. It just makes it so much worse. And the fact that he went to Dallas, of all places, is just I know Eagles fans are furious about this, and rightfully so. Reagor was, ideally not like I thought they should have went with Jefferson and moved up for Lamb, but Reagor could be a good player. I didn't like the pick, but I don't have that much of an issue with it. The third rounder they blew, but their third day picks were good. Like you guys said, I agree there. But yeah, I'm all with you with the Vikings picks. They were excellent. The Vikings had one of the best draft classes in 2020. Ruiz, and to touch on Ruiz a little bit more, like I know Drew Brees hates interior pass rush more than anything, more than edge rush. So it makes sense from that perspective. But if the other teams are happy about it, then I don't think it's a good pick.